Document intelligence moves beyond OCR. For anyone trying to classify invoices, receipts, checks, and other document images, the embedding gap is still very real. A practitioner working zero and few shot with Qwen 2.5 VL found that visually similar layouts collapse together in embedding space. Boxes, tables, and text fields blur distinctions the task actually cares about. Qwen 2 was the best so far in their tests, but still not surgical enough. Suggestions in the thread included trying OCR encoders like DeepSeek OCR, but the core need remains: embeddings that fuse layout, structure, and text content while being robust to minor visual perturbations. Two directions are moving fast. First, higher fidelity OCR that preserves structure. The new Chandra OCR model outputs Markdown HTML JSON with detailed layout and posts strong numbers on the Olmacher benchmark, 83.1 plus 0.9 overall in their tests. Ahead of several popular APIs and models listed: DeepSeek OCR, Mistral OCR API, GPT-4o anchored. It claims solid handwriting, tables, forms, and multi-column performance, which matters when document type signals live in both text and layout. Community attention is also on practical OCR trade-offs. Recent side-by-side comparisons of DeepSeek OCR and Mistral OCR show growing interest in cost, accuracy, and throughput, though some testing appears to rely on paid inference services rather than local hardware. Second, spreadsheet-native workflows that turn images into structured data and then back into images on demand. Hugging Face's AI Sheets now supports image columns, extract line items from receipts, pull data from charts, or classify document types, then iterate with thumbs-up feedback as few-shot guidance. It also supports generating and editing images at scale directly in the sheet, using thousands of open models routed via multiple inference providers. In examples, switching from a default VLM to a stronger reasoning VLM changed details like temperature and ingredients correctly, exactly the kinds of small but critical facts that break downstream classification if missed. On the MLLM front, the Open B8B model emphasizes document and chart understanding, reporting top rank on CharGZIV, and strong complex reasoning after training on a curated 15M sample SFT corpus with multi-level chain of thought. Claims are project reported, but point to a useful trend. Pairing high-quality, reasoning-rich supervision with vision language models yields better grounding on structured documents, precisely what document intelligence pipelines need. Agents get better at computers. Computer use agents, the ones that click, type, and navigate software, are not just hype reels anymore. In a benchmark task, Anthropic's Claude Sonnet 4.5 completed install LibreOffice and make a sales table in 214 tool use turns versus 316 for Sonnet 4, cutting detours and compounding fewer errors across long sequences. A 32% efficiency gain in 2 months is meaningful at the workflow level, and the framework used is open source for those building their own agents or evals. There are still hard edges. One is state. Subagents in Claude start clean with each invocation per the docs, which frustrates designs that split implementer and reviewer roles for iterative critique without cross-contamination. Fresh start subagents help limit bias, but they also add latency as each has to rebuild context. The community is asking for ways to retain subagent working memory across iterations without sacrificing separation of concerns. Another edge is guardrails without retraining. A recent paper proposes input-dependent steering for multimodal LLMs. Rather than a single static steering vector, it learns to nudge internal residual streams differently depending on the task and content. For instance, refusing detailed crime instructions while giving high-level safety advice, or deferring medical legal judgments appropriately. It's a compute-cheap, post-hoc method aimed at reducing hallucinations and safety failures in vision language tasks where full fine-tuning is costly. Finally, autonomous workflow-free data science agents are being pitched as democratizing analysis. One such 8B parameter approach drew interest for parameter efficiency, with the real test being whether it can handle open-ended research questions with human-like intuition. The claim is promising, but details are sparse. As usual, rigorous, reproducible benchmarks will separate generality from demo paths. Embedding APIs, token math. If using OpenAI's embeddings for large-scale similarity or clustering, the limits are straightforward once decoded. Each input string must be at most 8,192 tokens. When batching, the sum across all inputs in the request must be 300,000 tokens. Additionally, the array can contain at most 2,048 separate inputs. Put differently, cap each text at 8,192 tokens, cap the batch at 300k tokens total, and cap the count of texts at 2,048, then send multiple batches as needed. That interpretation matches the official docs and a referenced SDK issue discussion, pre-tokenized to avoid surprises. On the client side, JS TikToken can estimate token counts to enforce those limits before making requests. Batching logic that accumulates tokens until hitting 290k and then flushes will keep throughput high and error rates low. If your tier's rate limits are generous, e.g. TPM 3000 RPM, batch thoughtfully to balance latency and utilization. Local rigs, monitors, and kernels. For local AI builds, the big GPU tower versus mini PC plus eGPU decision hinges on I/O and ergonomics. A small Ryzen AI Max plus 395 class mini rig paired to a desktop GPU over Oculink has been confirmed workable. One user ran an RTX 5080 via an Oculink dock connected to a secondary M.2 slot without case mods, and the same chassis also exposed two USB 4 ports capable of hosting additional eGPUs. Another mini system advertises USB 4 V2 higher bandwidth, but fewer total ports. The counterpoint: if both machines sit on the same desk, most will default to the main PC. Be sure you actually need two setups before splitting budgets. Once the hardware is set, observability matters. The SSH dashboard utility streams CPU, GPU, RAM, and disk usage across multiple remote hosts over SSH, with NVIDIA and AMD support, quick host switching, and an overview mode. It's a single static binary per platform, using standard GPU tools on the remote side, NVIDIA, SMI, or vendor equivalents, so it slots in without intrusive agents. On performance tuning, a hands-on GPU 101 and Triton kernels write-up bridges the gap from building a GPT-2 clone to optimizing training, grouped query attention, KV cache, and then custom Triton kernels to make the GPU go brrr. For practitioners aiming to shave epochs or latency, Triton's sweet spot, kernel-level control without the full CUDA boilerplate, continues to be a productive middle ground. Section: Open models raise the bar. A fully open 8B multimodal model, B8B, stakes out strong claims. Trained on a 15 mem sample SFT dataset, Honeydata 15M, cleaned and enriched with dual-level chain of thought, it reports state-of-the-art among fully open MLLMs and competitive results versus recent semi-open systems. Gains are most visible in complex reasoning, MathVerse, LogicVista, Dynamath, and structured visual understanding, top on Chargsiv for descriptive and reasoning questions, and it supports thinking mode toggles. For deployment, there's first-class VLLM support to push tokens sec, plus an OpenAI-compatible server path. The broader OpenOCR MLM ecosystem is simultaneously getting cheaper and more comparable. Community head-to-heads of DeepSeek OCR and Mistral OCR indicate that both cost, perf, and hosting choices, local versus cloud inference, are active decision points for teams building production OCR pipelines. Together with structured OCR like Chandra and spreadsheet-native tools like AI Sheets, the OpenStack can now cover document ingestion, understanding, and content generation without proprietary lock-in. A periodic table of ML losses. On the theory side, ICON proposes that a surprisingly broad swath of representation learning techniques, clustering, spectral methods, dimensionality reduction, contrastive learning, and even supervised learning, can be viewed as minimizing a single information theoretic objective, an integrated KL divergence between conditional distributions. The paper offers a unifying equation and an organizing periodic table for algorithms based on their information geometry. This is more than taxonomy. The authors report a plus 8% jump over prior SOTA on unsupervised ImageNet 1K classification by instantiating the framework, and they derive principled debiasing methods for contrastive learners. If borne out broadly, such a lens can help engineers reason about why certain losses transfer across domains, and design new hybrids by combining components with shared structure instead of stacking ad hoc tricks. For practitioners, the immediate value is conceptual clarity. Disparate-looking methods may be optimizing the same underlying divergence with different parameterizations. That can guide both debugging, what exactly is being minimized, and innovation, what conditional distributions are missing from the loss. without chasing every new method as entirely novel. When authority automates error, Google's new AI mode falsely identified an innocent graphic designer as a notorious child murderer after he worked on redacting parts of a story. The system appears to have conflated name proximity with identity. The answer was not only wrong and defamatory, it may also have breached legal protections around juvenile defendants. Google removed the error and said it uses such mistakes to improve systems. But the incident underscores a structural reality. LLMs optimize for plausible continuations, not truth, and sometimes guess when uncertain, as even their competitors admit. The future of intelligence must belong to the individual, not the institution. As Brian Rommel argues in The Wisdom Keeper, large language models are not alien minds but reflections of our collective reasoning, the mirror images of centuries of thought. When that mirror is centralized in the cloud, someone else owns your reflection. When it runs locally, you reclaim it. A local model isn't just a privacy feature. It's the digital equivalent of fire in Prometheus's hands. It empowers you to learn, create, and converse with the totality of human knowledge without permission or filtering. True intelligence can't flourish behind API gates or under political redaction. It must live free, close to the edge, in the hands of those it was made to serve. If Rommel is right, and AI is the next evolution of how we remember, reason, and hand wisdom forward across generations, then allowing a handful of corporations or governments to mediate that memory would be an act of civilizational amnesia. The world doesn't need more algorithms policing thought. It needs billions of individuals cultivating their own wisdom keepers. Local, uncensored AI is how we preserve the human mind in digital form. Diverse, unpredictable, creative, alive. We either hold that mirror ourselves, or it will soon show us only what others decide we're allowed to see. Cybercrime, compromise, and supply chains. SpaceX disabled more than 2,500 Starlink terminals in Myanmar after identifying clusters tied to scam centers, highlighting how portable satellite internet has been co-opted by organized criminal networks. Starlink is not licensed in Myanmar or Thailand. Yet a UN report documented at least 80 dishes seized earlier, and authorities say operators have found ways around geofencing. A U.S. senator had urged actions against such misuse this summer. SpaceX says it cooperates with law enforcement globally and enforces its acceptable use policies. Closer to home, the Ubuntu website's downloads page was compromised to serve a Windows exe masquerading as a safe installer instead of .torrent files. Analyses indicate a crypto clipper stealer that persists under app data and triggers after users click Generate Download Link. The project disabled the page, is migrating to a static environment, and community forensics show AV detections ramping up over time, a reminder that initial detection coverage is often spotty. If you clicked it outside a sandbox, reinstall or run thorough cleanup. Hardware supply chains aren't immune either. Testing of bargain ADS 1115 ADCs found large variance versus known good parts. Some low-cost units could be failed QA, third shift, or outright clones, e.g. ADX11LEN. Pricing differences across distributors may reflect market segmentation, but selling clones as name brand is fraud. For prototypes, cheap parts can be acceptable if clearly labeled. For production, stick to reputable channels, or budget for costly surprises. Finally, for those building offensive security assistance locally, a 12GB VRAM box will limit model size, which caps nuance in a subtle domain like pen testing. Community advice trends toward combining a strong foundation model with an agentic layer, adding RAG over trusted sources like OWASP NIST, or using parameter-efficient tuning, LoRa. If compute is a blocker, consider on-demand rentals rather than squeezing too small models into roles they can't fulfill safely. Small tools that change workflows. A useful bridge between browsing and local assistance. The Open Web UI context menu extension for Firefox adds right-click actions that send selected text and even entire web pages or YouTube transcripts to Open Web UI with per-item prompts. Configurations can be exported/imported, and a Chrome version is under review. For anyone who liked Ask Copilot in Edge but prefers local or self-hosted setups, this is a practical upgrade. On the content side, AI Sheet's new vision features let teams create image-rich campaigns end-to-end. Generate images from text for each row, e.g. social posts. then edit styles en masse and export final assets without leaving the spreadsheet. It's a fast path from dataset to deliverables. And for experimentation with image generation tools, community repos like AI Art Generator continue to circulate. Just vet projects and licenses before wiring them into production workflows.